Most people don't register that an experience from their childhood is just replaying itself over and over and over. And what it keeps doing is it's amping up because you're resistant to seeing it. So you could see a lot of people who get into destructive relationship patterns. And you can see how, I dated the same person again. I dated the same person again. Oh my God, here's the same person again. How did I miss that, right? And it's like, because you're not learning or you're not addressing the parts of you that may have abandonment wounds, that may have rejection wounds, that may have so many other aspects that are creating these dynamics.
Hello, and welcome to Situaseans podcast. I'm your host, Sean Michael Williams, aka shawnydoo. You can call me Sean, shawnydoo. Does not matter to me. I'm just glad that y'all are here, and I have a special guest here, a spiritual coach, a shaman, author of Embrace Your Shadows, and co-host of the Soul Thrive podcast. Thank you so much for coming on, Christina Prokos. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. That's a great intro, by the way. Love it.
Thank you. We try to keep it fun and light over here whenever we can.
I love it.
Absolutely. So, I have a bio here for you, and it's such like a really like deep in depth bio, and I'd love to read it to the audience if you.
Sure, go right ahead.
All right, for sure. So, so for all of you, listening and watching, so Christina, she is an intuitive life and spiritual coach and a shaman whose work blends, energetic abilities, and she's had since early childhood. So she's born into a family of highly intuitive women and aware of her gifts as a young age, 2 or 3. She learned early on how to, deeply like those childhood environments, to how to shape a personal reality. So today she's using those abilities to read energy, sense core wounds, and understand how someone's early experiences can continue to influence their patterns, relationships, and coping mechanisms. So her path to this work wasn't polished, pre-planned. Christina, she tried to avoid her intuitive abilities for years by studying other fields, numbing emotions through partying, drinking, and doing all the fun things that she could to quiet that sensitivity. I know, right? I love this though. So her gifts repeatedly pushed her back towards the work that she does now. And so she's fully online with clients all around the world. We love that. Many to come after years of therapy, self-help tools that brought insights, but not like real changes. So her abilities to trace a person's emotional patterns back to their original wound helps them understand why they feel stuck and why their patterns make sense. So your approach is quite grounded, I'm understanding. So it's grounded, direct, and deeply rooted in fundamentals that you see across human behavior. So safety, belonging, connection, whether someone's overfunctioning, caretaking, shutting down, or repeating painful reactional dynamics. She helped those see patterns not as flaws, but as survival strategies learned in childhood. So she works with both practical and esoteric, often describing how she can walk through the energetic imprint of someone's childhood home, feel the emotional texture that they grew up with, and use practices as soul retrieval to reintegrate parts of themselves that disconnected during trauma. And so, lastly, here too is through her membership community, Christina. So I understand that you're teaching weekly workshops on boundaries, emotional safety, intuition, shadow work, and you're also hosting this co-hosting the Soul Thrive podcast, where you're deeply having these conversations through real-time guidance and all these lived examples and experiences. And your work has been featured in Just Breathe, the magazine, by Healing Hotels of the World. That's phenomenal. And your book, Embrace the Shadows, expands on a process of meeting difficult emotions with honesty rather than bypassing them. And as a podcast guest, you're bringing all of these like all of these depth and even just grounded insights to these conversations about trauma, relationships, family patterns, emotional evolutions, all of these good things, just helping audiences understand in the behaviors what truly it takes to like shift and just learn from our past. So sorry for that long, but
that was a long one. I apologize to everyone, but thank you so much. You did a fantastic job with that.
Absolutely. I was like, well, you know what? Since you took the time to put together that bio, it would be a disservice to not read it out loud.
I appreciate that. I really do.
No, for sure. Thanks Thanks for bearing with me and sticking through all that. I want our audience to know the amount of work and that you've done and
Hmm.
everything that you're doing to help everyday people. So that's amazing. So kind of jumping in, I kind of want to know, like, just to kind of get us like rounded, like, where are you calling us in from? What part of the world are you in?
Toronto, Canada. From Toronto. Yeah. Born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So tell me what are some of your favorite things about Toronto?
You know, I'm a city girl by heart and I love the city, but we've moved a little bit outside of Toronto, not far actually. I'm in like a Etobicoke area. So I get the best of both worlds. I get like almost like the suburb life now and the city life because my parents still live in the city life. I love the community. I grew up with a lot of community. We grew up with a lot of Europeans. We grew up with a lot like I went to a public school, so there was so many different cultures. Like I grew up in the city, loving the city. There's just so many things to love about Toronto. We celebrate everything and everyone. That's what I love the most about Toronto.
All right. I love that. I love that. And it's cool that, like you're even with your business and your practice and everything that you're doing, like you're helping people to like just all over the world. So it's not just, tied down to one specific,
Hmm.
city and zone. So that's amazing.
Hmm. I've been blessed. I'm very, very grateful that I have the opportunity to work with uh, different people from different places of, different cultures, different experiences, and yet they're so similar in their traumatic events and experiences as well and patterns. So it's been a blessing for sure.
Absolutely. And I think one thing to kind of call out too is like is kind of reminding us all that it doesn't matter where you come from or like, background, we are all going through something and we all have
Mhm.
work to put in no matter who you are.
That is very true. I wish more people took on that philosophy, to dive into the work and to create that as a lifestyle process, but not everybody thinks of it like that sometimes, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because like if I ever came across someone that said, "Oh yeah, I've done all the work is done," it's like just
Mhm.
run away.
Oh my goodness,
It's
yeah,
never
sometimes
done.
people come to me in sessions if it's like a new person that I'm meeting, they're like, "Well, I've done the therapy." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." But there's still more to learn about yourself, right? So, let's dive in a little deeper.
Exactly, exactly. So I want to know, like, how did you get involved in all of this? Like, tell me about like your background and like all of the experiences that made you who you are today.
Yeah, so I was born Greek Orthodox. My grandmother spoke, well, they're like, I guess, they were immigrants, and my parents are first generation. Well, no, actually, my parents are immigrants too, if I think about it. My mom was born here, but raised in Greece. My dad was born in Greece, raised here. So we would be the first generation Canadians. But they raised me in a traditional environment with, a lot of, religious perspectives as well. But we had the freedom to also explore other avenues of that. And my grandmother on my dad's side of the family was highly intuitive, and so was my great grandmother. She would often predict things that were going to occur or talk about dream sequences. I was very little and very attuned to seeing spirit or connecting with spirit. Didn't comprehend it at quite a young age, but as I got older, I started to understand what all of that was. I assumed it was quite normal because I grew up in that type of spirituality where it was like open and you believe in not so much the esoteric aspects of things, but more
Yeah.
just the belief in God and, miracles and blessings and, saints and, all of the beautiful stuff that comes with that. So I did have quite that knowledge and understanding. However, I also grew up in a very, um, uh, I would say, an environment between my parents that was very difficult. They didn't have a healthy dynamic. My father was a gambler. My mother, worked really hard. We lived with my grandparents. There was traumatic experiences. My parents did the best that they could. They had good hearts. They loved, but there was trauma there, and there was a lot that impacted my development as a child. I developed a lot of anxieties as a kid. I developed a lot of insecurities and low self-esteem as a kid. I was a very shy kid, just due to too much noise in the environment and the dynamics that were going on. I used to have stomach aches all the time as a kid, like when I would go to school. So, now that the work that I do, it all makes sense as to the experiences that I've had from my own childhood. Some of that too was just high levels of anxiety of being around other dysregulated people and feeling into that dysregulation. Also, because I didn't have that growing up unless I had it with my grandmother. So, you grow up in those types of dynamics. We normalize a lot of that. I think a lot of Europeans, a lot of other cultures normalize what their family dynamics are. And for years, it was just like, well, yelling is just the way we communicate, like that's how we show
Yeah.
love. And it was like, well,
Yeah.
no, that's not how we show love as you get older. And then, the gift aspect of things, like I started with clairvoyance and being able to see a spirit or deceased loved ones. And then that just progressed into my teenage years, making predictions but not necessarily thinking that this was an ability at the capacity that it is now. I was very into learning about the esoteric world, the metaphysical world. Like I was always very intrigued. And often, my light just went off. And often, I would meditate as a kid. So I would get into these practices at a very young age and not really know why, but that was my way of connecting with my guides and connecting to my energy and clearing my energy. And so I started that when I was about 6.5 years old, 7. I would meditate quite frequently. And then that then became a process as I got a little older as well. I was always connecting to guides. I would say that's the voices were there. Whether that was like I'm going crazy or not, but the voices were there and they would say things and I'd be like, "Oh, okay, cool, whatever." Didn't help me on any tests though, anyways, besides the point. But, then your teenage years, you get into these fundamentals of like trying to belong and trying to develop your confidence and your sense of self to a degree. I was very accepted to a degree with my group dynamics and stuff, but I was strange and weird and felt different. And I'm also neurodivergent. So I have dyslexia and I'm neurodivergent. So the way my brain processes things in general is very different, which is amazing for my work, but not so great fitting into a corporate world or a corporate job. We're doing the university thing and following that path and that cycle. So, which I was maybe felt like not an accomplishment for me, but oh my God, thank God I didn't. Because the way I operate and the way I view things makes my work really important. So that's kind of like, I guess, summing it up a little bit about, growing up with these dynamics and having these abilities and, my background as far as my culture goes. I still really, I don't necessarily believe in, I'm not quite religious the way I used to be because I am a shaman, but I have a fusion between both aspects. So that also plays a significant role.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for being vulnerable and just sharing all of that. Yeah, I definitely understand exactly what you're talking about. Like even just growing up in a household where, like there's just a lot of things just going on where it just made it hard growing up as a kid. To share a
hmm
little bit about myself.
hmm
So my mom and my stepdad argued every day as a kid,
Yeah.
and I'm the oldest of 5. So I was kind of like a third parent to my younger siblings, especially since there's like a 6 to 13-year age gap between me and my siblings under me.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, that's
and
a
so
lot.
oh, yes. The house was always, like, just was always just loud in general, and so, unfortunately, my stepdad abused me and my siblings and, and kinda, had a lot of aggressions and everything, just took it out on all of us, and so, my mom would kinda just be caught in the middle of it, and so trying to, like, I guess almost tussle between, okay, I wanna look out for my kids, but also, I want, like, like my husband to also be happy, and so just trying to, like, please both sides, definitely made it stressful, but overall, like throughout years of therapy, I've been in therapy for about 6 years, like, definitely, did the work to try to like figure out, okay, well, hey, why is it that whenever I'm around somebody who may not communicate well, why is it that I just automatically just have the least amount of patience with like, people like that. And then I go back and remember, oh, it's because growing up, I was used to people being bad communicators. I was used to like these certain
Mhm.
dynamics that would just trigger me. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
Oh, that's hard. I just taking a moment to just digest your process there. That's a lot. That's a lot to have different personalities in one environment, have different dynamics. Everyone's assigned a different role. You have to think about that too, because whether we like it or not in our family dynamics, we are assigned specific roles. So I was a scapegoat, right? You were the fixer. If you look at that, right? You were the one who's mediating, fixing, communicating, trying to bridge the gaps between everybody. And so, that makes you great at like what you're doing now. At the end of the day, you're facilitating your communication aspects of stuff, but you could see how trauma can still lead in certain aspects, right? Your need for urgency or your need for patience and we could see how that all translates into from our childhood wounds up until our personality now. And so yeah, that's difficult, but at the same time I understand it very well.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. So, but yeah, those you that are listening and watching, I'm hoping that you all are kind of drawing from like our experiences, and hopefully, you're talking with somebody, getting help, or even like working with Christina. She has a website, she has courses that you can take. So this is like your opportunity to get started and helping with your wellness and your just that inner spirit. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And so even just kind of tying it back to like your spiritual journey. So like your journey wasn't necessarily like linear. So you spent years kind of avoiding like some of like these, like intuitive gifts before stepping into like this work. I want to know like what was the moment or the experience that kind of like, finally drew you back towards like your path and being like, okay, this is what I really want to do.
So I really love how the universe operates because the universe is going to give you many experiences where it's going to you're going to have moments where you're going to have to face certain parts of yourself that you're going to be like, "Oh God, why did I do that?" or "Why am I in this experience?" And can you choose an outcome? And I had a few of those throughout the years, and I still stayed on the track of like, "No, thanks, this isn't what I want to do." And then my body burned out. I got shingles at the age of 27 and I was basically bedridden for like 9 months, which then forced me to edit my entire life. And it was
Wow.
like, right? It was like, okay, so you're starting from ground zero again. You can't operate the way you were operating before. You need to remove certain relationships out of your life. They're not serving you anymore. And you don't have any direction. You don't know what you really want out of your life. You're going in one direction with school, and I was working part time as well. I just didn't, nothing was connecting, nothing was making me feel a sense of fulfillment. And so my life in general just felt like I needed a massive reset, but the reset was in getting sick.
Yeah.
And and then that was the moment where I was like, okay, well, what's the one thing that I can do to make myself feel better? And it brought me back to my meditation practice, which then got me back to connecting to my guides, which then got me back to shifting my frequency, which then got me back to reading the right book, remembering my intuitive abilities, tapping into my mediumship. Like it started off like that, but it was getting sick was the catalyst to realign me basically, bring me back to what I was supposed to be doing. Because everything before that was dumbing down the sensory. Things were too much. I couldn't be in certain environments with people because I was picking up on so much of their emotional states, their dysregulations, deceased loved ones, telepathic thought patterns. Like it was so overwhelming. It was like the radio was on loud all the time. And the only way that I can dumb down the sensory is if I was like drinking or just avoiding the situation whatsoever. And the getting sick was like, okay, so now you're home. You've got nobody. So let's bring in the silence. Let's re-educate your energy again, your nervous system again, and let's get you on the path now because now you have no choice. This is what your alignment is. You could have chosen the easier route a few years before, 10 years before, but because, there's no context. Like back then, it was like, okay, there was a few psychics and mediums. If you think about like John Edward, right? Like he's well known in the psychic community. And I remember watching him as a kid, but there weren't very many that were credible that, even looked at it as a career opportunity. It was like, what do you mean doing all of this, right? So at a younger age, it just doesn't seem feasible. It felt like pleasing my parents and going in one direction was what I was supposed to do. And getting sick pulled me back into that alignment. Because your soul always knows your alignment is there. You're always going to be drawn to it. It's just a matter of my stubbornness at the end of the day. But yeah, so that
Absolutely.
became the catalyst for my change.
Yeah, wonderful. And so what would you say to like kind of like piggybacking off of that? Like let's say there's people out there that are kind of like naysayers, like, oh, like why even listen to anything like in the spiritual realm? Like none of that's
Mhm.
real. Like, what would you say to somebody that's like dismissive about it? And how could you kind of like I guess sway them towards, hey, you don't have to follow any one certain advice, but how this is how you can look at it from a different lens.
I wouldn't want to convince anybody to change their belief systems because I think it's so important for people to navigate what they believe and what their convictions are at the end of the day. But I will say this, you do influence people. And you can influence people in a positive way and you can influence people in a negative way. Which way do you choose? And
Yeah.
if you're choosing a path where there's destruction and you're choosing a path where there's resistance and you're choosing a path where you're caught in your coping mechanisms and your addictions, maybe viewing something from a different perspective would benefit you. Even if, let's say, you're a very logical person, you're someone who rationalizes a lot of things, believes in science, dive into quantum physics. Learn more about that. Look at dimensions. Get into a questioning process. Always question the why, how, where, could it be, right? Nobody is saying anything is set in stone because we don't have all the information at the end of the day. But what's most important is that we should always be curious to a degree. And if we're shutting something down, it usually is based on a limitation, a trauma that's linked to something, and a belief system. So if you really want to navigate like trusting something like this, then it would be important for you to then unravel what your limitations are in your belief systems. Now, if you're stubborn in that and you know what your path is and you really have your convictions around that, then that's great. I respect your path and I would hope that you would respect someone else's as well. At the end of the day, I just want people to be kind to one another and respectful for each's perspective and understand we can agree to disagree and that's fine.
That part, I love that, I love that. Cause like, I know for me in my own journey, like, I do like to think about things, like, beyond, like, our,
Mhm.
physical being and, like, more so in our spiritual being, and so, like, growing up, I was, like, raised, like, Methodist Baptist, and, like, I could not, follow that religion for like for too long because like it was just like, well, for one, the mat like the church services or whatever were like freaking 4 hours in the Baptist and Methodist church, so I hated that. But also, I because of the abuse that I endured
Right.
as a kid, I stopped believing because I was like, oh, if there really is a God, then why would he let all these things happen to me and my siblings, And so
Right.
and then, like, for a short stint, I went, like, non-denominational, like, in my
Mhm.
mid-20s just for, like I was like, "Okay, you know what? Let me just try to see if I can get back into, like, just going to church ever so often just to see."
Mhm.
And then I remember this church that I was going to, um, when I was in Chicago. Now I'm in LA now, but I was in Chicago for like my entire life, but moved out to LA about like a year and a half ago. But anyway, when I was in Chicago, I was going to like this church, and I remember the pastors, pretty much like every service or every other service saying, like unhinged things about like queer people. And like so me, I have
Ugh.
friends, family, people that identify, in a queer community. So just hearing like the pastor of this church say, "Oh, well, we won't talk about, those other people or, man and woman and woman, like that's evil, but we won't talk about that." I was like, goodness.
Right. Isn't that exhausting? I can't believe that we're
Yeah,
still having these types of conversations, but I also comprehend the reason why. Like for them it's their belief systems again. It's their process of understanding what their religious aspects are. But, you know, we have to evolve. We cannot operate in those limitations anymore. And, how can we reject people for who they are? I don't understand it. Like, and I know this too, with the Greek Orthodox Church is the same thing, right? Like I can understand why they're thinking like that. I've listened to priests as well and have that conversation. I've had that conversation. Trust me, I've sat across priests many times and I've had the challenging conversations too, because I'm a psychic. At the end of the day, the occult is like, oh no, we don't go there. And I was like, well, I don't know. Didn't Jesus get visions? Like, I don't know. Didn't that happen? Like,
right.
you know, I mean, I don't understand why the woman is not regarded so highly in a church. I don't understand that either. Right?
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
like, um, it seems more controlled. It seems more about an order than it does about love and compassion and acceptance and community and all the fundamental things that we human beings need. So I'm all about more so the Christ consciousness. Like I believe in like the embodiment of the frequency of that. I'm not so much about the religious aspect of things. So there's a difference
Right.
there,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
It's
for
it's a
me,
Yeah,
oh, go
it's
ahead.
very, very different. It's very, very different. And it's not so much following the philosophies of what the church and the Bible have said per se. It's more about just being a good human being at the end of the day and showing up the best that you can, even when you're not your best.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Cause I know for me, like, I still believe in some like form of energy, like
Yeah.
something that's like,
Yeah.
created us or that we're kind of, trying to, you know, I guess look towards as a North Star to be a better person. I do believe. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
I think, yeah, I definitely agree with you when it comes down to like, yeah, it doesn't matter what someone's, belief system is, as long as they're not forcing it on other people or
Mhm.
trying to like, I guess, I don't know, in some way use it as a weapon to get others to conform to whatever it is that they want
I
them to
mean,
conform
come
to.
on. We know that so many people do that. I mean, just that's not even a church thing. That's just like people can do that, right? When
Yeah.
they're in their victim mentality and they've been in situations, not victimized. Victimized is very different because there's a lot of people who have been victimized in ways that need support, need and help. But there are other people who refuse to see things from a completely different perspective, and they're operating as a victim and have the victim mentality. And then they're sticking with a narrative, and they want other people to ally with that narrative to go against whatever that one person saying as far as the truth is. You could see
Yeah.
that not only just in churches but in communities as well, which is really dangerous. And fundamentally it's just coming from a place of wounding. Everything is coming
Yeah.
from a place of wounding.
Exactly. Exactly. And we're kind of going through that right now while the world is on
Mhm.
fire.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that's another conversation.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you kinda talking about so you're talking about, emotional patterns as like, survival strategies, learned in childhood. My question is, how can listeners begin to kinda differentiate between a learned survival pattern and, like, their true authentic self?
So I would assume first, if they're having controversy with the authenticity part, then everything that they're operating with is a pattern, regardless.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
everything in your life, the best thing to do is your awareness piece, right? So, like, you have to start to examine your choices, your relationships, how you operate with your food, how you operate with your financials. Like, take inventory to your experiences so that you are looking at your overall life. And if
yes.
you can see certain things are operating based on your belief systems, again, because belief systems play such a significant role, we're not going to change anything if we're not willing to view our belief systems around how we feel about our financials, the way we eat, the way we operate, the way we cope, the way we deal with repetitive patterns. Most people don't register that an experience from their childhood is just replaying itself over and over and over. And what it keeps doing is it's amping up because you're resistant to seeing it. So you could see a lot of people who get into destructive relationship patterns. And you can see how, I dated the same person again. I dated the same person again. Oh my God, here's the same person again. How did I miss that? Right. And it's like, because you're not learning or you're not addressing the parts of you that may have abandonment wounds, that may have rejection wounds, that may have so many other aspects that are creating these dynamics. To lead towards authenticity, you would literally have to ask yourself, what are you willing to finally surrender to and let go of? Because we're so prone to want to belong. No, we'll do it at all costs at the end of the day. We
Yeah.
want to be accepted, liked, and to have a sense of belonging. We we assume that that's what community is all about, and we go towards people who often reject us consistently, that are mirroring these childhood wounds consistently. And then we're asking ourselves, "Oh, well, as long as I'm being positive and I'm being really great and I'm vibing high, then, everything's okay and I'm my authentic self." That is not authenticity.
Right.
Authenticity is being okay with the ugliest parts of yourself as well and recognizing, hey, you know what? I have narcissistic adaptations. I learned that from my mother because she operated this way. I had to survive her. So therefore, I adapted that way. And now, when I'm in an argument with my significant other, those adaptations play a significant role. You've got to cue in. You have to register your dynamics from your childhood so that you know how you're showing up in all your relationships. And then how that's where the shifting starts to occur. That's when you can give yourself some time to assess and be like, okay, well, if I respond differently here, is this my true self? What does my true self feel like if I'm not leading with these adaptations or leading with these coping mechanisms or my belief system? That's why I'm like, and it's so difficult to like, as I do this work all day, every day. And sometimes people are like, oh, I'm making this decision right now. And I'm like, great, let's reevaluate what the pattern in that decision is. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's sit and think about, when you decide this, whatever this thing may look like, is it pulling you closer to your true self or is it pulling you towards a false sense of belonging?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's the one thing too, that's the common, theme here is looking within yourself and starting to come to terms and realize, "Oh, yeah, where a lot of these patterns and behaviors, where is it stemming from?" Because that is so true. Like, if it's not if we're not checking ourselves and reflecting on ourselves, it does come off in other relationships for sure. Yeah, and even just I know, like, a few years ago, I was in a relationship with somebody who they went through pretty much the same thing that I went through as a kid, but the difference is like, just all these other outlets. So I do musical theater on the side. I love
Mhm,
performing. I'm an artist at heart. So I
mhm,
had, like, all these other outlets and just sports and stuff like that to take my mind off of the stuff that was going on at home, and I
mhm,
turned all that negativity into a into positive. So yeah, let's say if I was having a hard time like at home, the minute I would go to like play rehearsals and stuff like that and just perform on stage, I would like just use that negativity and turn it into a positive, just be my best self, right? But growing up, my partner at the time, she didn't have any of those outlets to kind of channel it. And so she kind of just, I guess just expected other people to kinda carry any of, like, those baggages or, like, the insecurities, and so when we got into a relationship, we were kinda, like, both protecting our inner child, but the thing
mhm,
is, I didn't feel like the same example, like, she would be very invalidating, like, "Oh, well, I don't feel this way, Sean, and neither should you," which is a terrible thing to say. I'm allowed to feel how how I'm
right.
gonna feel. But, through some couples therapy sessions and stuff like that, we, tried our best to kind of figure things out, but unfortunately, it just we were just in 2 different places in our own healing journey, and I didn't wanna wait for her to kinda, like, get more into wherever it was she wanted to go.
Mhm,
Because of course it takes 2 to tango. On my end, I
mhm,
know that I was very vindictive because of I just lost patience because, over time I was like,
yeah,
"Okay, we keep having the same arguments about the exact same things. Or if she would do something, me coming out petty, oh, well, fine. If you want to do that, then don't expect me to do this. Or, so I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I'm turning into something that I don't want to be.
Mhm.
And the triggering things that she would say or do was very reminiscent of my stepdad did to me
Right.
when growing up. So now I need to exit because I don't want to undo all the work that I was doing on myself.
Mhm. What would it feel like if you weren't performing?
Yeah, so when I was performing, it was like,
Like,
honestly,
wait,
it just
let me clarify.
yeah.
What would it feel like if you just didn't perform? Like, not just like music, not theater, but just like because personality-wise, as a fixer, you're performing all the time, every day of every moment, which is like
So true.
super it's like a perfectionist thing, right?
Yeah.
And right? And like that then goes into the urgency of stuff. Like for you, everything is urgency. Like when I'm tapping into your energy at the end of the day. So it's like urgency, performance, which, yes, is so amazing because it's going to make you thrive in other areas of your life, but it's going to be complicated in relationship dynamics because you're always running away from the conflict that's showing up, that's being mirrored back to you. That's another layer that people need to comprehend. So you recognize, okay, oh, this person's like my stepdad. Like this is just coming up, and I don't like this, right?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
mirrored. That's a mirror to your unconscious, subconscious parts. So if you were to look at that relationship and write out everything that was being mirrored back to you, then that means that you still have to work on those aspects of yourself
Absolutely. Yeah.
and deepen those aspects of yourself and become aware of like, and I loved when you it identified with like, I can be vindictive, which is like, that's a shadow part, right? It's like when everyone's afraid to talk about those negative emotions and those negative behavior patterns, right? It's like, yeah, I know I'm a manipulator. If I wanted to manipulate something, I could do it no problem. My dad used to do it all the time. That's how he got his needs met. So like identifying like, oh, I do this behavior. And when this conflict shows up, I act this way. I perform this way. I have this dynamic that goes on because at the end of the day, when we're talking about protecting our inner child and the safety of our inner child wants to resolve the conflict.
Yeah.
That's the one objective because it feels if I resolve the conflict, then I'm safe. And then therefore I'll get my mother's love.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity becomes like when these relationships that are high level contrasts that are like bringing out the worst parts of yourself. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and say that you should be staying in them and like being miserable and like being depressed. You guys did the best thing. You went and had a therapy session. You sat down with a professional and you tried to work it out, tried to talk through it, and then realized, oh, this isn't going to work out because the other person may not be actively listening to the role that they're playing in this. So therefore I'm running into a wall consistently. But,
Yeah.
the opportunity may get better the next relationship by you identifying, is this person an active listener? Like immediately going into it and being like, how does this person respond to this energy? Instead of ignoring the red flag, ignoring the situation at hand. And then you registering, I need to be more patient, right? Because that feeling of sitting with yourself can feel really uncomfortable, right? And
Yeah.
and when and when you're a perfectionist or when you're someone who performs or when you're someone who's a fixer, whatever you identify as far as your role in your childhood goes, right? Like I was a scapegoat. So for me, it's like I'm always villainized, I'm always the bad guy, I'm always blamed, I'm always crazy, I'm always saying it the wrong I'm the wrong person, blah blah blah, right? So you've got all these aspects and I can see how that's played out over and over and over in my relationship dynamics until I view that and say, well, no, maybe I'm a really good person and people are just projecting onto me. I've got to identify that trauma, that behavior pattern. And then you're looking at, perfectionism and impatience and urgency. With the urgency, you're always like, this doesn't feel good. I can't feel this right now. I don't have time for this. Got to go. Got to get out of it.
Mhm.
Right. And let me just stay in the high vibe. Let me just stay in the good feeling. But it's like, but then you're going to keep running into the same conflicts over and over again.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, because even with that aforementioned, like, relationship, I was in that for 2 years. I tried for 2 years. I was like, "Oh, goodness," like,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then, and like, and like I ended up dating somebody a couple years after that. But long story short, that next relationship or that I had, well, we never really made it to like the full girlfriend boyfriend, like I guess like a label. But we were in it for about 2 years with this other person, and it was very healthy. The only
Mhm.
downside, it was just some things on the back end, as far as just like well, long distance or whatever and stuff like that, and like because we were in different cities, so flying back
Mhm.
every other month, and like so that, and then just like some family dynamics that just couldn't really be fixed on the back ends. But other than that, it was healthy because she was great at communicating. I was great at communicating with her, like
Mhm.
just with
Mhm.
per each other's feedback. And so yeah, that was probably the first time I ever dated somebody where it's like it ended not because of how we treated each other, just some
Right.
uncontrollable things that were third party that had nothing to do with each other.
Mm. Doesn't that sound like your mother wound?
Yeah. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's cool that like how you're able to just like clock these things, and this is exactly why I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad that the listeners are, and viewers are tuning into this, because like yeah, like this, like they're getting like a real world evidence and real world kind of like firsthand experience of how you identify these things.
Mm, mhm. That's like yeah, that's your mom wound right there. That played itself out the other way,
Oh
right?
yeah.
So it
Yeah,
was like
oh, go
right.
ahead.
Go ahead. No, no. Go ahead.
Oh, no, 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 I was just gonna say, yeah, because growing up, unfortunately, like, I wish that I had a close relationship with my mom. Is more so just like,
Mhm.
"Oh, hey, if you need anything," or, "Hey, mom, if you need hey, mom, you need anything? Hey, Sean, if you need," like, it's not really like, oh, because like, I've never hung out one-on-one with my mom. "Hey, mom, let's just have like a mother-son," like, it was always like, "Well, I got I'm too busy, like, work," or, like, "I got all your siblings, like, I don't have time for that," and,
Mhm.
love my mom, and like, she did the best she could with all of us. But yeah, it was never like a close relationship. And then like with my siblings, yeah, I had to just take care of all of them. They got in trouble, I got in trouble. Why did you do like do this? Or so yeah, and then leaving home at 17 and being homeless for about like a few months, my senior year of high school, sleeping on park benches or house hopping, like my like it's a miracle that I'm even still here. But long story short, um, I did so much reflecting like throughout my 20s that I was like, okay, now that I'm like in like like once I hit my 30s, I was like, okay, now that I am trying to date intentionally and find like a life partner and all that, I recognize my errors of my ways. I recognize my flaws and my strengths and my weaknesses, and so on and so forth. And I'm able to kind of enter into something, or, meet people in an environment where it's like, okay, I want to know where this person's at with theirs, because I know where I'm at with mine. I want to know if they know where they're at with theirs, so we can kind of see, do we mesh or do we not?
Mhm. It's okay to be loved without needing to perform,
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And I feel like I've always had to be quote unquote on, because like
Yeah.
for the sake of somebody else. I gotta
Yeah.
make this person happy. I gotta do
Yeah.
this. I'm like, when do I start doing things for me?
Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. So true in that. Absolutely. But yeah, it's interesting. Very, very interesting. When you were homeless, I mean, I need to understand this a little bit more.
Sure.
Um, did your siblings show up?
So they so when I left home at 17, since there's such a huge age gap, the next one under me was like 11, like 10 or 11,
Okay.
and the
They were
youngest was
really
like
little.
5. So like
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
couldn't
that's really
really do
little.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And okay. Well, maybe off camera we'll discuss that.
For sure, for sure, for sure.
Well, I mean, wow, that's a lot to carry.
Yeah, 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 but overall, I know that even just doing this podcast has helped me, grow as a person too. Because I
Mhm.
mean, again, we're all, going to continue to grow and develop. But that's another reason too why I started the podcast was like not only because of just like my own, things in the dating world, but also just life experiences. Hey, am I the only one going through this? Well, you know what? Let me talk to
Right.
other guests or subject matter experts like yourself. And like, yeah, like I want to hear other people's experiences. Like, yeah, maybe I'm not crazy. Or if I am crazy, sure, call me out on it or whatever. So like, yeah.
Well, you're not crazy. We're not crazy. We're not gonna be used until
Right, exactly.
crazy.
Yeah, right. We won't use that word here. Right. Am I non-conventional? There we go.
Love it, love it, love it. Perfect.
um, also like, like kind of going back to like your book and everything, because I
Mhm,
definitely want to touch on this. So
mhm.
your book, Embrace Your Shadows. So you actually guide readers to kind of transform pain into empowerment. And first of all, I just want to say I love that. Thank you for like, just, helping guide us through that. So what is one common shadow emotion that people resist the most, and why does facing it actually lead to their own freedom?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, there's a bunch, I would say, but I would say fundamentally the hardest one that I see that people struggle with the most is rejection. The
Yeah,
rejection wound becomes the hardest aspect to navigate through because it's tied so much with shame as well. So when I'm navigating through, let's say, an inner child process where I'm doing integrative work and we hit the layer of the rejection wound, this and it is a visceral response that happens in the body when I'm locked in as a shaman and I'm doing, like I said, the integrative work. All of a sudden, this nausea will come over the body or this like instability, right? This feeling of like, oh no, I can literally feel how much I reject myself and then how much I feel rejected by the world and people around me. And it's a very, very sensitive, um, emotion to navigate through. You have to have a lot of awareness how to navigate through that because immediately triggered the wrong way, the person's going to go right into the defense mechanisms.
yeah,
And quite often I'll see that. They'll go right back into that and then it becomes you against me,
hmm, yeah,
right? So I tread lightly and we work on that through layer through layer through layer and then once they've built trust with me and their energy, then I slowly start integrating that wound with them. Because if I start immediately with them, forget it, they're gone. They're done. They're like, nope, I'm out because they've taught themselves a false sense of belonging, like we talked about earlier, and a false sense of safety so that they're liked and that they're accepted. If I go in now and try to change that frequency for them, that wound of rejection, now their whole entire life is going to collapse.
yeah,
Everything that they've tied to as a sense of who they are is an illusion. They're going to have to view that and experience the loss and the grief that comes with the need to change. And
right,
most people don't have that foundation. So we always start off with a solid foundation of safety. Safety becomes the one that I'll start off with so that we can get to the layer, peeling the layer of the onion to rejection. Because it's a
yeah,
lot. Like I've sat across people, and as a shadow worker, what people don't comprehend is as a shadow worker, I'm acting as your subconscious. So everything you're telling me, I'm reading your energy and the way my tone, the way I'm communicating to you, the things I'm saying to you is exactly what you're feeling in your unconscious self, your subconscious parts. So I'm reflecting back that to you all the time. And if you have a massive rejection wound, you're not going to like that feeling. You're going to be like, absolutely not. I don't like, you're the problem. Why are you projecting onto me? Duh, this doesn't feel good. I'm like, you've chosen to
right,
sit across from me for a specific reason. So we have to
exactly.
navigate that, right? And that was also very difficult for me too, because when I started off this work, I'd be like, "Oh my God, okay, let's work on this, let's work on that." And I was like, "Oh no, they can't. They're not there yet. They don't understand that." And I'm triggering a part of them right now that they feel like they're drowning in. So, I had to there's a responsibility with the work that I do too, because as I'm navigating all those aspects. So rejection is the hardest. It is definitely linked to shame as well. But if we were to navigate safety first and learn how to communicate with our inner child, which is what my book does. My book is a guide. So basically, I just, it's like treading lightly. I'm just like, here we go. Let's just start a conversation with your inner child. Let's just do that. Every day, you and your inner child are going to be friends. You're going to be buddies. You're going to learn how to talk to your inner child. You're going to check in on the regular. You're going to have that experience. Then we're going to just kind of pose some questions. Let's just kind of navigate through this. Let's just question a little bit. Let's figure out what your inner child's really communicating to you, as I'm also educating you through themes, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is kind of the theme of the mother wound. This is kind of the theme of the father wound. These are kind of the relationship dynamics that happen in your childhood. These are the things that were kind of projected onto you. This is where shame comes from. This is where rejection comes from. So I kind of gently guide someone through that. And it's so funny because my clients who have been working with me, some of them have been working with me for a very long time. They choose it because now it's become a lifestyle for them. It's not even like, I want to heal anymore. It's like, this is just what I do, just like I exercise, right? That when I wrote the book, I was like, it's going to be super easy, guys. Don't worry. And they're like, within the first 3 chapters, Christina, you rocked my world again. Like, what? I wasn't expecting this now. And now I'm hitting this layer of, I can't even get to the next phase of the next chapter. And it's not a thick book. It really isn't. So a lot of people will read through it the first time. They'll just go through it the first time and then they'll go back and they'll start doing the process, the work. I'm all about the work, fundamentally about let's get you a good foundation so that you can deal with these emotions and not be scared and run away from them.
Yeah, yeah, it is teaching people to like have a little bit more care and thought as they're going through this. Yeah, because I understand it's not easy, especially for like anyone like that's gone through something, and in which a
Hmm.
majority of people have gone through some form of
Hmm.
trauma.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah,
I couldn't do if I didn't do the work that I do, even just for myself, because I don't just preach it, I do it for me too, consistently. I mean, 2 years ago, I had the worst case scenario, a year and a half ago, or whatever worst case scenario of my life happened, where people that I thought who loved me, who were supportive of me, literally turned against me and allied, made me the bad guy again, villainized me, right? And it was jarring. Like, it was the worst experience of my life. Like, it was like a death and a rebirth. And like, it was one of those things that if had I not registered what my grief was, what my shadow emotions were, I probably would have stopped doing what I'm doing.
yeah. And I'm glad that you still stayed true to your heart and you knew what was best for you, and yeah, like you protected like your spirit and your soul and your peace. So yeah. And like, and I'm glad that that you have all these tools, not only for like your clients, but also for yourself too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm. For my inner
absolutely.
child. Absolutely.
Exactly. Um, and even just talking about soul and soul retrieval. So I know that this is definitely like an ancient practice, because we hear about ancient civilizations practicing whether it is tuning in with like that other dimension, and we hear about this in history books and stuff like that. So I want to know, like, you kind of adapted it today for kind of what you're doing in your healing practice. And so can you explain kind of a grounded way that soul retrieval feels for like a client, and what is that transfer I guess that transformation that it can spark?
So there's 2 processes that I do. Inner child work is more of the integrative work, shadow work, and that is it gets used on pretty much anyone that I meet consistently. The soul retrieval aspect is for individuals who have gone through extreme trauma, like sexual abuse, grievances, losses, traumatic events that were really extreme, because what happens, even though the shadow work aspect still integrates a lot of fragmentation, a lot of consciousness and energy that has been fragmented due to trauma, still is the fundamental aspect I walk. But if I know that this person's trauma is really deep, then I actually have to use my shamanic process and go and literally go. It's like going into a timeline, different frequency, a different energy. And I'm going in through this timeline and I'm literally living and experiencing and viewing to a degree of what's happening. And then I register where the initial fragment has now been hidden. Because sometimes we do this, like, our brains are so limited. We have so much that we don't know about ourselves, right? And so
Yeah.
if we thought about that, where did we lock that trauma? It's like,
Right.
where is it? Where did that little child, that inner child, take it in a box and hide it away? Because they're like, this is how I need to survive. So if I give this essence, this part of me to this person, I'm dead,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I have to go in and find the initial core wound to that. And with that, it's working with my spirit animal, navigating different dimensional frequencies, going through different timelines and retrieving and finding those parts. But in order to do that, you have to cloak your energy. There's a whole other process with that. So this is where we get into the metaphysics and the esoteric aspect of things, which is hard to quantify because it's energy. It's not tangible for people to comprehend, um, unless you experience it firsthand, right? So like if I was to go in and retrieve someone who's, you know, was, and I hate using this example because it's just like an awful example, someone who was sexually abused by a father figure and they locked their innocence away somewhere. And now we're trying, we've worked together for a year and now we're like at a point, a layer of this experience. I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to retrieve their innocence back because that was stole from that person took that innocence away from them and they're housing it somewhere and the child's locked it away and it's my job to bring it home. And 99.9% of the time after I've done a process like that, a shamanic process, the response that I get is always, "Oh my God, I feel whole again. I can't explain this to you. I don't know what you just did, but I felt that. I felt that move through my body and I feel like a part of me came back home." And I'm like, "Great. We know we did our job."
That's wonderful. Yeah, because even, tough situations like that, like going through that, anyone who's been through that, yeah, it is hard to kind of trust people or just even just exist because yeah, there's a part of you that does want to give yourself to a person if it's the right person, but also you can't help but to recollect that like the past and what happened. Yeah, and so the fact that you're able to work with people to kind of like help go back to that inner child and try to find, okay, hey, let's, yes, this is definitely, soul crushing and, let's process this, let's work with this. Okay, now I'm asking you like the client, take the hand of your of your inner child self and like let's usher like this kid back to healing and back to your true self and get to a place that where you want to be. So that's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um Yeah, and so even just talking about emotional safety and boundaries, what are some subtle signs that someone, hasn't yet built emotionally or safely into their relationships that they can kind of like, I guess, get there, and how can they even like change that?
Low self-esteem. At the end of the day, I think the people that feel the most unsafe, like I can identify it in a person when they're operating in extreme behaviors and they have low self-esteem and they're doing things based on their adaptation. So they're creating issues through their adaptations because they're ultimately looking for safety,
Yeah,
right? But if we were to help that person assess what's going on in their life and their experiences, and that there isn't a threat, you don't have to manipulate people. You don't have to, be sneaky, or you don't have to let your jealousy or comparisons lead, because that's all coming from unsafety. You feel threatened by something outside of yourself. And that's just one example, but there goes into many examples where even if someone is overtly nice, right? You're like, okay, why are you doing that? Someone may feel unsafe with that energy, or maybe the person who's doing something overtly nice is doing it because they figure, well, I'm going to disable you, so therefore you're not going to come attack me in some way. We do these things like an animal at the end of the day, because our nervous system is still adapting to what our flight, fight, or fawn types or freeze responses are, no matter what. So we're always on edge. Our nervous systems are leading in specific ways. We have to get better at identifying what, again, I'm going to I'm going to say it again, our belief systems, the way we're leading and the way we're viewing our life and our experiences and our limitations is going to give you exactly how unsafe you actually feel. It's
Yeah.
always going to tell you, like, if you're constantly worried about money and like, I need to save and I need to do this, and you've got tunnel vision, that's operating with unsafety. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean you're operating with confidence and you're self-assured and there's a sense of empowerment. You're living authentically and you're like, there's charitable and there's exchange. No, like you could see the person who's narrowed their experience because of their fight or flight, freeze or fawn response versus the person who's confident, self-assured, open. That's like, I can lose it all and I can build it again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You could see those dynamics, right? That doesn't mean it's good or bad. It just means that's the byproduct of how much unsafety you're operating in. And sometimes we don't check in with our own personal unsafety, how we make ourselves feel unsafe by self-abandoning, self-betrayal. Like we're doing all these things where we are creating the unsafety within ourselves. And guess what? The inner child starts to go, I don't trust you. You are not
Right.
making me feel safe. Doesn't matter that you're affirming all these good things. It doesn't matter that you're trying to make changes. If you're creating unsafety in me consistently, I'm out. So good luck. And let me tell you,
Exactly.
your inner child is leading. So when you're having panic attacks, anxiety, the weird sicknesses, you're attracting things in your life that are complicated, complex, or whatever. It's because your inner child's looking for constant resolve so it can move you closer towards safety so they feel safe enough too to fully express creativity, imagination, authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, and if anything, this episode should show listeners and viewers like how much our inner child does have a play on how we make these life decisions.
Mm-hmm. Oh, but have you ever not seen a grown ass adult throwing a tantrum?
Exactly.
Come on. If we just use that one example, it's like a grown ass. I've had professionals. I've worked with lawyers, doctors. I've worked with judges, professionals, tantrums. And I'm like, you do realize that that's your 2.5-year-old version right now, completely dysregulated. You're upset, right? Okay, let's work through that. Because logically we can rationalize everything that we want, but our nervous system and our inner child's leading all the time. So that's why people are like,
Exactly.
and which also goes into why do people fall into addictions as much as they do and why they
Yeah.
can't stop and they keep going into relapsing. It's because you are not regulated. You're not working towards regulation and safety, internal safety, and your rejection and shame are leading.
Right. Because even just, whether someone needs to drink or smoke or take,
Hmm.
like drugs in order to kind of like suppress it all, it's like it's it's not going to help because it's just going to just calm it down for like 2 seconds. But then what's going to happen once
But
you're sober the next day?
for
Yeah.
them, where they are vibrationally, that's their self-soothing mechanism. That makes sense for them. That has become the solution to the problem,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that's sad that's the way most people can cope. And then eventually, once there's hopefully most people who get sober and all of that, why do you think they go towards faith and spirituality and all the other things? Because they're looking for a relationship to co-regulate. They're looking for self-soothing.
Right. Yeah, because you know what? As people, yeah, we are always like we need connectivity. We always need to connect to something. And so like dude, that's a
Mhm.
really good point. If they don't have that alcohol or like that crutch or whatever the addiction is, yeah, like you just said, like they turn to like God or like they find something else to kind of help, like you just said, regulate what's going on inside. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
a really good point.
Mhm.
And so like your platform Soul Thrive. So you have workshops and like guided meditations and like community support. So just for anyone that's tuning in, like can you kind of share with us like how community I guess accountability plays into all of this, and like yeah, like how does this help everybody and how does it help us move forward?
So I love that because that's a good question because we are all energy at the end of the day, and the universe is always working based on laws of attraction. So we couldn't hold the same space and frequency if we weren't on the same tone and frequency to a degree based on whatever our experiences are, whatever our outcomes are. And so I created a community platform, and I have a beautiful community of people, and they're all like attracts like, because their main objective is we all want to heal trauma, we all want to heal our inner child. So they come in with that one objective, for instance. However, whenever I'm teaching a workshop, when the information's coming through, everybody in the group resonates with it because they're like, oh, I can literally pick a point in my life, in my experience, where I had that happen. And then what starts to occur is this organic process of healing on a collective level. And so even though I'm maybe doing, let's say, like at a macro experience, maybe I have like 50 people in the class or something like that. They're then going to their families, then they're going to their kids, then their kids are going to other kids, to other families. It becomes a viral type of experience because that frequency and energy is attuning and changing the nervous system in so many different ways. So collective healing is powerful.
Yeah.
Even if you think about prayer and meditation, if you just tuned into wanting to pray for the collective or meditate for the collective energy and healing is huge based on even where we are country wise, right? Where you are, where you live, you are a vibrational match to those experiences. Everyone's thoughts, everyone's feelings, everyone's experience are similar. You
Yeah.
may still have your own story, you will still have your own journey, but there's a real we can relate to one another to a degree. And we need that as a community so that we're elevating the frequency as a collective. And then we're making collective environmental shifts. We're making government shifts. We're doing so many other things. So it may seem so small, but actually it's so big.
Right. Yeah, no, that is so true because uh, even just like example. So you know how like people have like those group therapy sessions or even just like,
Hmm.
or and I'll even use this for like the people that do go to church, like congregations. Like, yeah, people whenever they see someone else being inspired, oh my goodness, this person is receiving whatever this word is, or even just in group therapy. Oh my goodness, this person is they're sharing and being vulnerable with like some of like the demons in their closet. Oh my goodness, like they're trying to like actively do the work. Wow, over time I'm seeing like this person make an improvement, whatever it is. That is so true because we do kind of connect, not only to other people, but sometimes like you just said, those experiences, it does kind of like reflect back on us. Oh wow, well, I'm not the only one going through this. There's someone else that's going through it as well. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Which is lovely too, because then we're kind of dealing with the shame aspect of things there, and then the rejection aspect of things there too. Then we start to feel like we're not alone. We're not navigating our experiences alone. We can relate to one another, and there's a respect and non judgment. And that feels really lovely because it's not conformed by any belief system. It really is about the objective of the collective because ultimately we want better for ourselves, for our children, and for our environments. And that is the importance of doing this work at the end of the day, because that's like the frame of everything. It's like if I can change me, then I'm responding differently to people, and then that becomes another aspect of someone else's experience, and so on and so forth. I will also say too that negative experiences are needed. So
Yeah.
even if you're having an experience with me and you come to me for a session, and it's like I said, I'm a shadow worker, I'm reflecting your parts back to you, and I'm even in a collective group because it's happened many times too, where I've triggered the group in general. And I'm like, oh, we're having that episode now. This is great. Now we're having all the negativity show up. Great. Let's bring in the shadow parts so that we can navigate the storm. We can navigate the illusions that we're operating with so that we can really hone into the core of what's really going on. And if somebody triggers you in any capacity, I trigger people all the time. I'm a catalyst for change. That's the only way sometimes people change, right? It takes a serious situation, a traumatic situation, a big event in their life, a big event globally for people to look at themselves and reflect differently. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish more people would be a little bit more aware, like I said earlier, tuning in and assessing and recognizing their choices and their decisions and belief systems, it would become easier than the, hey, let me just like knock you to the ground so that you can wake up and realize you should be doing this. But again, I love that because it's spiritual initiations, right? Like leveling up in life. This is part of the alignment that I was talking about earlier through my own experiences, where it pulls you back into where you need to be and be of service at the end of the day. How can you be kinder, loving, find acceptance, be not judgmental? But it's okay also to have a bad day. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be perfect.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, we don't need to be perfect. Like we're human. We're human for a reason.
Mhm.
Yes, yes. And speaking of like the human experience, so like like on social media, whenever like someone's going through something, like they'll make a reel, they'll post it, and then like it goes viral, and then you have people in the comments kind of arguing and battling it out. But going back to the whole connectivity thing, like I guess how does social media help or hinder our personal experiences? Because like you just said earlier too, like, and I agree with you when you said like like that whole group experience. I think what's happening on social media is like, yeah, people take their group or their experience in their region or area, put it on social media. People from another group or regions like, that doesn't happen, or "No, that's not true." How do we navigate this?
I don't know how to navigate it. I'm just looking at it from a place of duality, right? Like I think it's important for us to be able to see another perspective. And I think there's nothing wrong with having, again, to agree to disagree sometimes. There's nothing wrong with that. Do I think that social media, some people do things deliberately because they know it's clout and they know that they're going to get their attention and they know exactly what they're doing in the comments to begin with. That falls
Yeah.
back into manipulation, that falls back into money, that falls into so many other spectrums. It all matters based on what your intention is at the end of the day. Um, and so we do live in a world of duality no matter what. And it's our job to recognize how can we find common ground. And I think if we did more of that, of just like, I mean, I've been triggered by people. I don't know if you've ever done this, but I've never responded on someone's gram and been like, I completely disagree with you. And this is like the worst experience. And I'm like, I don't have time to do that.
Can't do that either.
I
Yeah.
saw, and I'm like, okay, if you have that belief system, I have a choice. I can either feed into this or I can block you if I feel that this isn't what I want my energy and my experience to be involved in, which I've done. I've done many times. I'm like, I don't like this person's vibe. This person's getting blocked. And I'm allowed to do that. And that feels really great. And I move on with my day. You know, I have my own socials. I have had so many people call. I'm like, where do you have the time? Where do you have the time? Like, if you have so much time to comment such a negative response, like maybe you need to reevaluate who you are as a person. And maybe you need to restructure your thought patterns so it's not so me, ego driven and narcissistic. We do live in a world right now where it's all about narcissism. It's like, look at me, look at how amazing I am, look at all the experiences that I have. We all fall victim to it at the end of the day. We all want, again, not to be rejected. We want to be liked. We want people to see us for who we are. I mean, image at the end of the day, like I want to make sure I have makeup on and my hair done. I'm not going to show up in my hair in a bun, but some people do, and that's amazing. They're living more authentically like that. I'm a little bit too of that perfectionism. I want to look a specific way. I get that. I don't know if we're going to live in a world. I hope that we're going to live in a world where we can simplify things and we can rationalize, and maybe someone could take a pause and not get so defensive and feel like it's such an attack to their own belief systems and their own limitations at the end of the day. And from like a trauma perspective, it makes complete sense for people. And the people that I've attracted that have disliked me or have made comments at the end of the day, I mean, it's a vibrational match to my subconscious parts. So I have to deal with my subconscious parts. If I see you're mirroring something really negative towards me, I'm not going to get offended. I'm not going to even get into an argument with you. I literally delete and block you. And then I sit with myself and go, what did I attract that? Where did that come from? I have to be objective about that because I don't want to be another person that walks around this world feeling like the unsafety of things all the time, right? Like it goes back to this unsafety. people can hide behind social media. They could do a lot of things that they could hide, but you don't really know what's going on behind closed doors at the end of the day. There's a lot happening there too.
Exactly. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, because we're definitely in this era of like me, and
Hmm.
yeah, like because it's fine to be because we are the main character in our own stories. But I think the issue that's happening now on social media, we're trying to be the main character in other people's stories, and
Hmm. For
that's where the
sure.
discourse is happening.
For sure. For sure. For sure. People are inserting their trauma onto other people, projecting it onto them. For sure.
If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, can you do me a really quick favor? Can you please rate and review this podcast? Like hit that 5-star review because, and I do read all the reviews because this helps me know how this podcast is helping others and how this podcast is serving you, because my job as a host is to serve you this podcast the way that you would prefer it to be. Okay, so I got a few listener submission here. So what happens is like every episode we have some listeners that will send screenshots of just unhinged things. And so a listener had submitted a few screenshots from Hinge. And so they saw some things that stood out to them on someone else's profile. And they want us to unpack it. So are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Let's see.
All right. Okay. So this first one says, all I ask is that you have no flaws and are 100% perfect for me. Is this hinged or unhinged?
Oh my God, that's so unhinged. Oh, wow. That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
you know,
Talk
I
about
could.
narcissism right there.
Exactly, exactly. Because I like, I can imagine maybe this person is joking. I'm hoping that they're joking, whoever put that on their profile. But yeah.
I hope it's a funny joke too. Maybe it's satire. I hope so.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely unhinged. So okay, this next one says, I wind down by crying. Hinged or unhinged?
I mean, unhinged. And yeah, I would say I think crying is a good thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think processing your emotions at the end of the day, if you're unwinding with that, that's a good thing. It's
Gotta
not a
do
bad
it,
thing.
yeah. Absolutely. But like, yeah, I'm hoping that that person's eyes aren't sore, because if you're
Hmm.
crying every time just to wind down,
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah. So yeah, it's okay to feel. Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
This next one says, I'll introduce you to my family if I hate you enough. Hinged or unhinged?
I'll introduce you to my family if I hate you enough. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is
Exactly.
funny. I mean, it's unhinged, but like funny. Because like, if I hate you enough, I'm gonna bring you in my family dynamics and I'm gonna let you have fun with them.
Exactly, exactly. Because I was just about to say that's how they're gonna get introduced. You know what?
Hmm.
Here's this
Sure.
crazy
You
one.
think you think you figured it out? You think that you're unhinged? Dude, come over here, have a seat, and I'm gonna let you know exactly what's going on. And I don't like you anyway, so I don't like these people. Have fun with them.
Exactly. It's like I'll show you unhinged. Those were amazing. Oh my goodness.
Those were funny.
All right, Christina, I really appreciate you coming onto the show and just dropping so many valuable insights. You are such a blessing and just an amazing person to talk with. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much for your time and for your energy and for your truth and your authenticity. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, absolutely. And thank you for being vulnerable with our listeners. I know they appreciate it. And yeah, I'm hoping that, so many people that are tuning in will learn from this episode and like, yeah, whatever is going on in their journeys, they can like work with you to get started. And so speaking of which, can you
Hmm.
share with our listeners how they can work with you? Like if you have any socials, websites,
Yep.
anything you want to promote, share it here.
So www.christinaprokos.com is my website. And then Christina_life_spiritual_ is my Instagram. I'm mostly on Instagram and then my website. I am on YouTube as well. It's just Christina Prokos Life. You can find me there as well.
Awesome. All right. And for those like that are tuning in as well, we'll have all the links down in the video description of the episode and in these podcast show notes for your podcast streaming services. Awesome. And yeah, do you want to like have like any last minute like any like last words that you want to share with our listeners? Words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom. I think the best thing that I can offer as far as advice goes is listen to your inner child because they're going to guide you in the right direction.
Love it. Love it. I like that's so true. Wonderful, wonderful. So for all of you tuning in, we really appreciate it. If it like whether on a boat, a plane, a train, hey, maybe you could be one of Christina's clients, or you could probably be like, like be working with her right now. You could take this podcast with you wherever you go. We're everywhere. Like, comment, subscribe, all the things. This helps other people find the show. Also, definitely tune in to Christina's podcast as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, the Soul Thrive podcast as well. Yes, on Spotify.
Wonderful. And we'll have that linked down in the description too. Perfect. And
Appreciate it.
with absolutely. And with that, I will see you all back here for the next episode in a couple of weeks. Woo!